Hi, my name's Kevin Hicks. Welcome to my YouTube channel, The History Squad. Now today we're on location in a place called Moose Jaw, which is in Saskatchewan, my province of Canada. Now there was a very strong Canadian military association with Moose Jaw. And what they've done in the tunnels of Moose Jaw, they recreated from 1958 an installation from the Cold War. It's called Bunker 24, and it was an exact copy using some of the original equipment of a NORAD establishment here in Canada. NORAD, by the way, North American Aerospace Defense. How's that for a mouthful? And I'm going to let you in for a little bit of a surprise. I've been in some of these facilities when I, as a British soldier, was part of the Cold War. So here we are in the communications centre in Bunker 24. Now when I came in here yesterday on the tour, I looked around and I thought, oh, there's the typewriter I used to use. I recognise some of this equipment in here. So this is all from the 1950s, late 50s. I was a soldier in the mid-70s, and yet we had some of this equipment. It just goes to show that things change very, very slowly. But the Cold War, a lot of people out there, they simply don't know the Cold War. Right, simplify it. End of the Second World War. The Americans drop the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The world shook. Half of it probably went, wow, we've won, the Second World War against the Japanese. But the other half of the world probably went, oh my goodness me. Look at the weapon that the Americans now have. So there's an arms race. Now, after the Second World War, the Russians had advanced all the way to Berlin. So they actually occupy half of Germany and then all of the countries behind, and they're going to keep them. That was the beginning of the Cold War. What were once allies fighting the common cause of the Nazis, now it's the Soviets and it's the West. And it's so sad, they call it the Cold War. And then when the Cold War went hot, like the Korean War and the Vietnam War and various other conflicts, it was quite a time. But I remember as a child in the 60s at school doing the nuclear drill. And the sirens would be tested once a month in my town. And we were told exactly what we had to do, get under the desk and all this. Now, as I got a little bit older, towards the end of my school career, one teacher said to us one day, he says, listen, if the bomb is dropped, simply put your head between your knees and kiss your backside goodbye, because that's the best you're going to do. And we laughed, the Cold War, until I actually became a soldier in the Cold War. And the particular regiment I was in, we dealt heavily in nuclear, chemical and biological warfare. I know how serious the Cold War was. I also know how important all of this equipment was, because in the Museum of Military Artifacts in Saskatchewan, we have a uniform. And when I had a look at the uniform, I asked, what's the badge? Because she got a trade badge, and I'd never seen this before, and we didn't have it up on the wall. The reason we didn't have it is she was an operative. She used to track Soviet submarines. She spent 2 years of her career living on the southern tip of Greenland with earphones and a screen in front of her, tracking the nuclear submarines. This was big deal. Countries were almost at war. You only have to look at the Cuban Missile Crisis, when we were pushed to the edge of war. And tracking stations like this all over the world, whether they be on the Soviet side, whether on the US, Canadian or the British side, they were everywhere. And it's amazing to see what they've done. So there's another incredible thing deep down in the bunker here. This is a reconstruction, a faithful reconstruction of an encoding and decoding machine called ROC-X. And the guy who invented it, Pat Bailey, he'd made it from an old Xerox machine apparently. He repurposed it. This was so good at encoding messages that the code has never been broken. But this goes back to the Second World War, because Mr. Bailey there worked alongside Alan Turing, the code breakers at Bletchley Park, which is just fantastic. And have it here in this little bit of a bunker, and you're looking at it and you think to yourself, well, that looks a bit boring. But then when you find out exactly what it was, the codes from this have never been broken. So we're in the briefing room. What they do here is they show you a film when you're on the tour of Bunker 24, and it's a propaganda film. But it's a propaganda film to fool the population of Canada into believing what the government wanted them to believe. It's quite a twist in the story of the Cold War. It's getting the people on your side, and it's also pointing the finger towards communism and socialism. And one of them is having a go at Tommy Douglas, the Premier for Saskatchewan, who actually formed in the 50s the first socialist government in North America. Boy, were they after him. Socialism in those days equals communism. They just didn't understand. But the propaganda that you see, they're actually going for this guy, right? They're turning the people against him. And yet, Tommy Douglas was the man who brought in Medicare. Treatment for all, medical treatment for all. He was, wow, when he brought socialist reforms into Saskatchewan. But as I walk around here and I see maps of the Soviets, it reminds me of my time actually going into secret facilities dotted around the world. I can't tell you about them, it's a secret. But I can tell you one or two little stories, and the one was quite something. I was simply told, have a listen to this. And I put on these headphones and they kind of dialed me in. And I'm listening to officers firing orders to a gun crew. And then the gun crew are firing. And these tinny sounds, you could just, rage, fire. And when I'd finished, I says to the guys, these signal experts, I says, what's this all about? And they said, you're listening to a signal we've picked up from the Mediterranean, from the Battle of Al Alamein in North Africa during the Second World War. I'm going, no, that's impossible. And they says, right, signals can bounce out of space, but sometimes they get caught. And on the Mediterranean, it's like this great big bowl, and it will bounce side to side. And they then played me recordings of jets and things like this from different conflicts that they recorded, and conversations that they were recording. But it's interesting because it was through them, this tracking station, we knew that we had a Soviet spy network not far from where we were operating ourselves. It goes very, very deep. I'd love to tell you some of the deeper stories, but I can't. I simply can't because, hey, it's a secret. So we're still down in the bunker, and you come around the corner and you find a little bit of a spy school going on. Security and Intelligence Department of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They were actually an autonomous secret unit that operated inside the borders of Canada. Their job was to track down Soviet spies and keep an eye on suspicious Canadian citizens, especially those who were deemed to be communists, socialists, and may have actually been active Soviet spies. It's quite incredible when you see, actually it's the spy within, a secret organization within your own society that tracks down your own citizens. It's one of those dark, shaded areas of the Cold War. Bit of James Bond going on here. So there's one part of this facility that I kind of brought back memories. This is a decontamination chamber. So in the event of a nuclear or a chemical attack, the guys who are outside and have to come inside, they have to be decontaminated. Now this is very archaic compared to the stuff that we had. But, you know, I listen to people, they talk, oh yeah, if there was a nuclear strike. Well, one of my jobs as a British soldier in England was in the event of a nuclear attack on London, I had a particular location to go to. And my job was to report back, whether it was an air burst, a ground burst, or a subterranean burst, to calculate the fallout. And in doing that, we'd be able to estimate the amount of people that have been incinerated by an atomic bomb. And you talk to people about it, have no idea what an atomic bomb nowadays can actually do. So just before I'd finish, the reason they've got this reconstruction of Bunker 24 is near Moose Jaw was the Royal Canadian Air Force base. which made it a secondary target in Canada for a nuclear strike. So once they've taken out the capitals and the oil, then they would come after the military base. And Moose Jaw is well within the target range of the nuclear warfare. So it's quite prevalent that they've done this in the tunnels of Moose Jaw. I'm walking around going, oh, this is really great. So, you know, if ever you are down this part of the world, you get the chance, come on down to Moose Jaw. It's a nice town anyway, and spend a day down in the tunnels of Moose Jaw. Now, if you did like the video, like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to turn on the all notification buttons, because you really don't know what's coming on down the line. But before I go, mention for my Patreons, I've got it written on a piece of paper here, Peter Cost and Craig S. Hey guys, thanks a million. Bye for now.